Okay, so you hear a huge company is filing for bankruptcy, right? And your first thought is probably, well, that's it. They're done. But what if I told you it's not always the finish line? Sometimes it's just a pit stop, a chance to refuel, retool, and get right back in the race. Today, we're diving deep into the strategic and honestly fascinating world of Chapter 11. All right, just listen to this for a second. We're talking September 26th, 2001. Enron's chairman, Kenneth Lay, gets on the record and says the company is, and I quote, fundamentally sound. He even calls the stock an incredible bargain. Fast forward just a few weeks, and the whole thing just implodes. One of the biggest, most shocking bankruptcies in history. Wild, right? So that begs the question, right? How on earth does a corporate giant go from strong to totally bankrupt, seemingly overnight? And more importantly, what happens next? After all the chaos dies down. That's exactly what we're going to break down today as we pull back the curtain on Chapter 11. Okay, so before we can even talk about the pit stop, we've got to figure out why the car spun out in the first place. What went wrong? And it all starts with this one critical concept: financial distress. Now, this is super important to get. Financial distress isn't just some abstract accounting problem, a bunch of red ink on a spreadsheet. No, it's a cash crisis. The company is literally running on fumes. They can't pay their bills, they can't pay their suppliers, maybe they can't even make payroll. It is a genuine make or break moment. They have to do something or the whole thing is going to collapse. So, how does a company even get to this point? Well, there's usually not just one reason. It's often a perfect storm, right? Maybe you've got poor management making a string of bad calls, or maybe the entire economy takes a nosedive. It could even be a brand new technology that just comes out of nowhere and completely changes the game. Any one of those things on its own can be tough, but together, they can be a total knockout blow. And that's the moment. When a company is truly on the ropes, that's when they pull into our corporate pit stop. Chapter 11. And let's be super clear about this. This is not waving the white flag and giving up. It's the exact opposite. It's a calculated, strategic move to get back in the fight. The single most important word to remember here is reorganize. Think of Chapter 11 as a legal shield. It gives a company that's fundamentally pretty good. They've got a great product, good people, but they're just drowning in debt. It gives them the breathing room they desperately need to fix things, restructure, and hopefully come back even stronger. Okay, this part is pretty amazing. The second, and I mean the literal second, a company files for Chapter 11, something called the automatic stay kicks in instantly. It's like a giant force field just pops up around the company. All those creditors, they have to stop. Lawsuits, collection calls, everything just freezes. It is a giant system-wide pause button that finally gives the company a chance to catch its breath and figure out a comeback plan. All right, let's bust the biggest myth about bankruptcy right now. A lot of people hear Chapter 11 and think it's a corporate garage sale, selling off everything for parts. But that's not it at all. The goal is to repair the engine, not sell the whole car for scrap. And you can see the difference right here. Chapter 11 is all about reorganization. The doors stay open, the business keeps running, and the goal is a comeback. Now, Chapter 7, that's a different beast entirely. That's liquidation. That really is the end of the road. The business is shut down, everything is sold off, and that's all she wrote. So here's something that surprises a lot of people. In a Chapter 11 case, who do you think is running the show? A new CEO? A court-appointed trustee? Nope. Usually it's the same management team that was there before. The thinking is, hey, they know this business better than anyone, so they get to stay in the driver's seat and try to fix things, although you can bet the court is watching their every move. Okay, so we're in the pit stop. What does that actually look like on the ground? Who's on the pit crew, and what exactly are they doing to get this car back on the track? Well, it really boils down to a 5-step process. First, you file the petition. That's what starts the whole thing and triggers that awesome automatic stay. Then comes the hard part. The company has to create a detailed reorganization plan. Think of it as their roadmap back to health. Once that's ready, it goes to a vote. All the different creditors and shareholders get to say yay or nay. And finally, if enough people vote yes, a bankruptcy court has to give it the final stamp of approval. So you've got all these different people wanting to get paid. Who's first in line? Well, there's a very strict rule for this called the absolute priority rule. Just think of it like a pecking order, a very rigid one. At the tippy top, you have the secured creditors. These are the lenders who have collateral, like a bank that holds the mortgage on the company's headquarters. They have to be paid in full before anyone below them gets a single penny. And way, way down at the bottom of that list, the stockholders. And yeah, more often than not, they end up getting completely wiped out.
All right, so the company made it through the pit stop. The plan got approved. They're ready to peel out and get back on the track. What happens next? What does life after Chapter 11 actually look like?
Now, check this out, because this is a real pro move. The smartest companies, they do all the heavy lifting before they even step foot in court. It's called a pre-packaged bankruptcy, or a pre-pack. Basically, they hammer out a deal with all their major creditors behind the scenes. Then they just file for Chapter 11 to get the court's rubber stamp and make it all legally binding. It's an amazing strategy that can shrink a process that could take years down to just a few months. Super efficient.
You know, at the very heart of every single one of these cases is one massive and usually very contentious question. What is this company actually worth? Because the answer to that question determines how big the pie is that everyone is fighting over. And trust me, the arguments over that number, that's where you see the biggest, most brutal fights in the entire process.
So in the end, Chapter 11 is a second chance. It's an incredible tool, but that second chance definitely comes at a cost. Creditors almost always take a loss. Employees might lose their jobs or their pensions. And like we said, stockholders are often left holding an empty bag. It's a powerful way to save a business, for sure. But it leaves you with a really tough question to think about. When a company gets to take another lap around the track, who are all the people that got left behind in the dust?